Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to today's first Cumulocity IoT business track presentation, where Jane and myself will be discussing driving sustainability with IoT. Just going to start off with 3 words. So 3 main themes that will arise throughout this presentation and that you'll see through the customer use cases that we'll be discussing as well. Those 3 words being transparency, efficiency. Now, with that, I'll dive right into the presentation. So, as we all know, the latest acceleration was really driven by the effects of COVID-19. And this really brought around many uncertainties that all markets face in the wake of the pandemic. And this really prompted the global digital landscape to lunge forward and embrace massive disruption in the name of innovation. Now, the next acceleration is the sustainability revolution. And we see nearly every product and most of our habits are really being amplified and are really under immense scrutiny. And this is the same for organizations. Organizations are facing unrivaled scrutiny at the moment with regards to sustainability. Now, continuing as this crucial topic, organizations, as you can see from the quote from McKinsey, organizations are really turning to technology more and more to meet and surpass these sustainability goals. And as McKinsey have stated, the IoT, so the Internet of Things, is a key focus. And it is one of the 3 most impactful technological advancements we will see before 2030. And this is why IoT is so key to sustainability, and it's really acting as that enabler. Now, you'll see 3 very important percentages up on the screen, 1 from World Economic Forum and 2 from some analysts. Now, the one I'm just going to focus on is the one in the middle from Gartner, where it states 90% of organizations increase their investment in sustainability programs between 2017 and 2020. So this dates back to 2020. It is still so important today. And to quote the famous Kenyan marathoner Eliud Kipchoge, the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. Now, just like that quote from Gartner, if you haven't already started acting on sustainability initiatives, start today, you may be at risk of being left behind by your competition. Now, moving on to the sustainability priorities, many organizations have many different priorities and initiatives, goals when it comes to sustainability. However, some that arise the most, and besides the obvious energy consumption and taking measures to reduce energy, have, of course, moving from a linear economy, so buy, use, waste, to a circular economy. So having that circularity within it, a key priority for many organizations. Following on from that, and we'll talk about the carbon footprint reduction through the deployment of various IoT use cases, but this is a key priority, which also leads into asset and productivity management. And lastly, but definitely not least, the optimization of operations. And all of these are really helping to build the foundations to transform customers' current operations. Now, all of this, very lovely, beautiful, but you need an enabler. And IoT is that enabler. It helps you steer down the path. Now, when I mention the path of progress, how do we get through that path of progress? Well, at Software AG, we've actually devised a framework, which you'll see behind me up here, spread across 4 different pillars of assessing, so measuring where you as the organization are at today, setting the baselines and the standards, and then moving on to that second pillar of building the strategy. So mapping your enterprise's vision and mission for sustainability, setting goals, KPIs, metrics. Once you've built that strategy, operationalizing it. So building, as I mentioned, that organizational foundation to integrate and manage sustainability initiatives. And then lastly, but definitely not least, tracking and reporting. And this final step really brings us into that circularity, so to say, because it doesn't end. But with tracking and reporting, you're really tracking performance, measuring, controlling, and adjusting initiatives accordingly. And of course, communicating with internal and external stakeholders to ensure that you're achieving these goals, that you're held responsible, and that you're continuing on your journey. Now, just mentioned journey. And I'm sure if you just assisted to Jürgen's session around the product roadmap, you'll have seen the following slide, which is our IoT maturity curve. Now, the sustainable IoT landscape involves many challenges, and these are really amplified by the need to constantly be connected to devices where disruptions are costly, and growth is tightly linked to reliability. And energy savings and lowering emissions are really just an iceberg, so to say. But just like IoT, so where IoT isn't all or nothing, you can go throughout the IoT maturity curve, deploying various use cases from remote monitoring, smart field services, performance management, as well as shifting business models to an equipment as a service model. All of these pair very nicely with sustainability. Deployment of these use cases, you're deriving sustainability benefits. So just to call out 3 of the main use cases, because as I'm sure we'll all agree, shifting to a different business model isn't particularly a use case, but more of a transformation. But through remote monitoring, smart field services, and performance management, these are really enabling the sustainability priorities that we mentioned. Now, by its very nature, IoT is that enabler. It is about sustainability, whether or not sustainability is a focus or not for your organization. Now, that's all very lovely, but how do we get there? And what capabilities do you need out of your IoT solution to achieve those sustainability goals? Now, with that being said, I'll hand over to Jane, who will talk us through that.
Thanks very much. Okay, before I dive in, can I actually ask who in the room has actually got a specific sustainability use case, or who is getting sustainability as a side effect? Specific use case. Yeah. So as JP says, we get sustainability from IoT as a side effect from a lot of it. So I was thinking about how do I actually look at of an IoT platform and map it to the previous part of the presentation. And it's really quite simple. I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs probably here. You need your devices. You need to connect your devices quickly, easily. You don't want to be spending a whole to be using the data in a way that's appropriate, both for your organization, but not least, you're going to actually want to run some analysis over that. I've always been sort of a data in motion person, and I used to think analysis was, well, just analysis. But people like Nick and Rob put me right. So apparently there's all sorts of different analysis as well that you actually need to run. So let's have a look at the first of these then, connecting your devices. We're doing a lot of work right now. If anybody knows of device people, get hold of Eric Sander. We're actually doing a lot of work building up the devices to make it easier and easier to connect them. So how can you connect your devices? Well, if you've got MQTT running through, that's quite easy. If you can actually talk the canonical format of REST or Smart REST to Cumulocity, or you actually can do your own mapping there. We've also got LP-WAN device support via OPC UA, etc. And if you've got a device that isn't easily connected, once you've actually done the work, it's easy enough. You can then deploy your agent and either actually make that available on our GitHub, or, as I said, speak to Eric, and then, of course, your device can be listed. Either way, the concept here is to build an ecosystem where devices can be connected quickly, easily, and more importantly, to start streaming that data into Cumulocity, where you can actually start making use of it. Because connecting a device, whilst interesting, doesn't actually give you very much. I just needed to put this up. The standard approach that we use in Cumulocity is we've got lots of deployment options as well. For some people, their devices need to be as close to the asset as possible. We've been looking at wind farms, manufacturing. They are either sensitive to the volume of data flowing from the asset through to the cloud, or they're sensitive from a security perspective. So you need a deployment where you can actually do that aggregation, do the initial analysis maybe at the most appropriate place before you actually start then maybe streaming that stuff to the cloud, and then maybe integrating it into your existing applications that you've money, time and effort on to get further benefit, so that you're not just doing sort of data analysis using TrendMinder or Rob's product as the streaming analytics, but also maybe BI as well. So one of the changes that we're actually seeing, I used to think that that was a device, and then I got told devices all munged into one big asset. So now we have a collection of lots of different devices. So we've had device management for quite a long time. You can bulk add devices, you can actually update the firmware, the software, so do all of that management type stuff. But at the device level, it doesn't reason about the interactions of an app, within an actual asset. So with the new asset management digital twin manager, you can actually start reasoning about what does this asset look like, what is the hierarchy, what is the relationship between various devices. This actually starts enabling you to, as a whole, and use that data within your stream, your historical analysis. So then, we've connected our device, we've now been able to manage it, and for some people that is the start of their journey. Just being able to manage a device is like a huge plus point, right? Some use cases, people are having to manage devices manually, and they're still sending people around in a truck with a hat, and he goes around and manages the device. For a lot of people, this is the start of their drive, and that in itself could be classified, if we're really stretching the point, as sustainable, because you're not actually putting the diesel fumes or the petrol into the air. You're actually doing that management remotely. So this is a really complicated slide, and I thought about trying to make it less complicated, but actually it sort of encompasses everything that we actually want to do with the data. So Cumulocity, mentioned in the previous presentation, has an operational store. We base it on MongoDB. That's a nice to know. But what it means is that you can actually get really fast access to your data, because we don't ask you to make decisions about it, right? We've got an operational store. You can put all your data in the operational store, and you can start using it. The streaming analytics capability uses the operational store for real-time data analysis. There will be more presentations in further detail on that later today, and I believe also tomorrow. that does what it says on the tin, right? It should only be for operational data. We tend costs quite a lot of money for you guys. Right? So you don't want to keep too much. What you want to do is figure out, how do I offload that to my data lake? I don't purport to understand pricing around data, but trust me, the data lake's much cheaper, and it just does the job just as well. And you can also then run your business tools over that. So you've got your streaming analytics for your real-time data analysis, make immediate decisions. I expect in SMC that's probably what you're using to actually understand if you've got a leak and whether you can send the guys out to sort it out. Whereas with Data Hub, you can run things like BI tools and, your business managers involved in analyzing your data from your devices. Those assets as something to do with OT, now you've got your business people involved and getting them actually making decisions based on that data as well. And then last but not least, you can actually start using that historical data to pull in machine learning so that you can actually start looking at anomalous behavior. So not only can you take action if, for instance, you've got an asset that's using too much fuel, that's leaking gas, or is at the wrong pressure for whatever reason, you can actually now have something automatically saying this is out of line with what we've actually seen in the past, and to actually get that involved in your overall business process as well. So this is a simplification of that. Analytics point of view, you want to merge both historical and real-time. Once you've got comfortable with that, you can actually start moving into the predictive analytics space. And I'm not going to say any more, because otherwise I'll get lynched, because I'll be stealing other people's presentations. So I now wanted to actually just run over how is Cumulocity IoT used. Now, this was a really difficult thing to pull together. So we've actually, on the eponymous SharePoint, a folder, and we keep presentation on all of our customers there. You know, what your use case is, what benefits you see. And so we went through it and thought, well, how on earth do we actually pick out some of these things? So if you're not on the list, my apologies. Sometimes it's because we didn't want to actually put people that had presentations and steal their thunder. So that's why you're not on this list. But the first one up was SMC. And we put this up because it's not just about being able to see something that's pretty invisible. You know, it's quite difficult sometimes to measure some of this stuff, and the only way you're going to be able to measure it is by using sensors, by actually pooling all of that data. But I also loved the fact that this solution was set up really, really fast. Is that accurate? 20 minutes. So I think that's really, really quite cool, because that means that not only have you actually started being able to start seeing results really quickly, you've been able to set everything up, and presumably you continue to actually update, enhance your use case. I'll have to get with you later and update this slide. Wind turbine manufacturers, I'm not going to belabor the point. We actually talk about this quite a lot. I think because it's so visual, turbines at sea, they're in the middle of nowhere for a good reason. They're put outside of the shipping lanes. So sending some poor chap out there in a boat that generally isn't going to be that big, and then he has to climb. They don't have lifts. He has to climb all the way up to the top. So you'd better know, not only does the turbine need to fix it, but he needs to know roughly what, because if he's not got the right spanner, he's not going to want to climb all the way down the turbine to get the spanner to climb all the way back up again, right? But that's just one aspect of this use case. these wind turbine manufacturers really need to start measuring how much energy is actually coming out of that, how much is going into the grid, how can they optimize all of that. And the volume of data is just absolutely huge. No doubt that we will actually start to see some new innovative use cases from some of this data as we go forward. An Australian water management corporation, I've only been to Australia a couple of times, but in various areas of Australia, sort of water is on top of mind for a lot of people for most of the year. So they wanted to drive a reduction in water usage so that they optimized their use of the water so that they don't end up having to actually put people on rationing and what have you. And they saw an up to 20% reduction in water just by actually being able to monitor people's use of it and make that monitoring transparent to their user. So a lot of the behavioral changes that we actually want to see about how much we use can be achieved by making that transparent to the end user, because a lot of people will naturally cut back on their usage if they see the impact of their actions on their usage of a natural resource. And last but not least, I included this just because I love wood flooring. A bit weird, but I think it's just a thing of beauty. And these people 30% on their raw materials by monitoring the machines that were making their engineered wood flooring. And that's a huge saving in materials. And as I said, these are just picked, not quite from random, but pretty much from a long list. I think that, to JP's point, sustainability follows IoT. And I think even if you start out with actually thinking, I've got to save money on the number of people I send out to do maintenance, I want to make more money by giving better customer satisfaction. The flip side of that is always going to be some level of sustainability improvements. And I think as governments start really focusing on a whole wide gamut of industries and services, that they will actually start setting people harder and harder to achieve goals when it comes to sustainability. I think actually understanding the benefits and how that can actually weave into your business-based use cases can be really, really helpful. And with that, I'm going to hand back to JP.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Jane. As I'm sure you'll all agree, some fantastic customer stories there that Jane went through. Now, with all that being said, I mentioned transparency, efficiency, and innovation at the very start, and I'll come back to that in a second, but I'm sure you can all agree that those are really the underlying themes throughout those customer stories. Although not explicitly mentioned, they are definitely there. Now, when we look at Software AG as a whole and our portfolio of solutions, we're able to really answer to all types of sustainability use cases, whether it's transforming processes to be more sustainability oriented, adhering to changing regulations, as well as integrating environmental data, as well as, of course, in the case of our customers, connecting, monitoring, and maintaining connected devices remotely to reduce energy output, as well as reduce emissions, and much more. Now, coming back to those three themes, transparency, you can really see this through our customers and yourselves assessing, monitoring, and optimizing operations while detailing, tracking, and reporting on sustainability KPIs based on IoT use cases. Now, second value of efficiency, really being efficient through increasing manufacturing capacity while reducing operating costs by efficiently using people, resources as well as energy, and all through sustainable operations and supply chain processes. Now, that last one, and I'm not sure if you attended yesterday's session, but we heard all around innovation, innovation being that constant, which unfortunately is never constant. Innovation is so key, and that's what we're trying to enable our customers to do, to continue to be innovative, addressing that growing need and demand for green products and supporting circularity through innovative design. Now, just before I get onto our final slide, as mentioned, those are really key values, and we keep seeing our customers really instilling these values throughout their journey, throughout their IoT journey. And as stated, whether or not they're focusing on sustainability, sustainability is a natural byproduct of IoT and comes through in the results. So it's really a question of tracking and reporting around that and being aware and educating ourselves, but also our end customers at the end of the day. Now, I mean, it says on the slide, but Cumulocity IoT brings sustainability to life. I mean, Cumulocity IoT helps simplify the truly connected enterprise where systems integrate more seamlessly, technology connects more effectively, and processes run effortlessly. Now, all of this is really enabling information and insights to flow more freely and thus allows organizations to focus on sustainability efforts, really focusing on your sustainability efforts and on your customers. Now, I'll just finish off with general really enables organizations to reduce emissions, energy efficiency, reduce waste in supply chain, and track and report across ESG initiatives. All of this is really contributing to a better, cleaner, and more equitable future. And this is really going to create a truly connected and sustainable world. And with that, I'd just like to thank you very much for your time, for listening to us. And just before we move into the Q&A part of today's session, just wanted to make you aware that we do have, with our team from customer marketing, so Sabrina Bohr, I'm not sure, I know that a lot of you have met her, but they're doing a sustainability survey, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on sustainability and where you're at with your journey and where you're planning to go to as well. Perfect. And with that, I'll open the floor to any questions that you may have. Please, Wissam. And if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
From Vision Valley. We operate in United Arab Emirates. One of the key things of sustainability is...
Sorry. Are we able to increase...
right,
yep.
take it
That's
closer.
better.
Right, okay. So I'm Hussam Adokani from United Arab Emirates. I work for Vision Valley. For sustainability, one of the key things is prediction. The capability to predict things wrong can happen before it happens. And in Jean's slides, we saw the machine learning part. And I'm aware that there is Zementis and there is Trend Miner, but now I see Trend Miner positioned for machine learning. Capability of Trend Miner and how we can use that?
So to Nick, who happens to be in the audience.
Thank you, Jane. No perspective, we want to offer a wide variety of capabilities for our end users, ranging from both business intelligence tools towards industrial analytics tools like Trend Miner, towards as well machine learning, data science and machine learning tooling. And I think essentially what we've seen in general, that over the years, there's been a kind of convergence from the more service basic oriented toolings with the more data science and machine learning toolings. And so also within business intelligence tooling, as well as, for example, within Trend Miner, the number of machine learning applications has been growing, as well as, for example, on the data science and machine learning side, there you also seen a trend towards more democratization of machine learning and AI with easier to use tooling, etc., etc. So basically, I would say everything is a kind of a bit merging together, converging in terms of capabilities, and so yeah. You could use whatever that kind of tooling that you would like these days to get towards not only descriptive analytics, but also more discovery analytics, as well as predictive and prescriptive analytics. If you want to know more, in this afternoon, like Jane said, there's a bit of a follow-up session specifically zooming into analytics, or otherwise we can, of course, discuss later on as well.
Thanks, Mike.